to another episode here on A New Life in France. It's the beginning of December. Why don't we talk about Christmas? I want to give you just a little bit of history about Christmas here in France, but also the traditions of Christmas in France, and probably some of the things that just vary from other places around the world. If you're moving into France and you're coming here to France, you want to embrace that, you want to understand it. So what I've put together is just some of the key things about what Christmas is like in France. Some of the traditions, some of the things they do, some of the things they eat. A little bit of history maybe of some of the Christmas markets. Just want to share that with you so you get a better understanding and you can really appreciate how special Christmas is in France. When we look at Christmas time and we look around the world there, particularly say the UK or the USA, Christmas tends to start early. In the USA you have Thanksgiving and then you go straight into the Christmas time as well. For me in France, the one thing I really notice is that Christmas sort of starts around the beginning of December. And what I mean about that is there's not a huge amount of stuff in the shops ready for Christmas sort of prior to December. A few of the shops will have some stuff in early November, but most of the time it starts to creep in around the beginning of December. You'll start to see some of the Christmas lights go up. You'll see a Christmas tree in some of the towns go up. But actually in France, really, Christmas time starts around the 6th of December. A lot of history there with St. Stephen and St. Nicholas, but very much about St. Nicholas. So we're talking about Father Christmas, or what they call in France Père Noël. So the 6th of December in France is sort of the traditional time the Christmas spirit starts to happen. So you might see the lights up and you might be used to the lights going on around the 1st of December, but it's probably typically they will go on, say, the 6th of December. In the bigger cities and the bigger towns, it will have started already. The Christmas markets will have started maybe a week before December. So you will see that. But traditionally around France, you can start to feel Christmassy around the 6th of December. As you move then towards Christmas, what will happen? There aren't really things like nativity plays that you might be used to in, say, the UK, but nativity scenes is a big thing. And nativity scenes themselves, you will see in the towns and the villages, potentially outside the churches or in there. So you will start to see those bigger nativity scenes in and around France. Now do remember, France is a really big place. So you will see traditions change just a little bit around the different regions and departments of France. You'll see that, but on the whole, these things are pretty typical. As we then start to move towards Christmas itself. Now, Christmas itself in France is really celebrated on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. There's not really a Boxing Day in France. So if you're in the UK and you're used to Boxing Day, you'll say that's a bank holiday, it's another day off. In France, it's not. It is a working day. The reason for that is that Christmas Eve is a really traditional time here in France in terms of food and drink. It would be very typical that you would have your Christmas meal on Christmas Eve. And that normally would be turkey or goose. Either of those would be fairly normal, but also it'd be accompanied with things like foie gras or oysters. And for me, you will see lots and lots of oysters being sold in that week running up to Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. You'll see them everywhere, and that's a real traditional thing here in France. So the food is a really big thing, and you have lots of lovely vegetables and fresh vegetables. But also then when you look at desserts at Christmas, then really you are looking at the bûche de Noël. So it's like a Christmas log. Now there's a lot of history about that Christmas log, how it was made hundreds of years ago. But today it is about a soft sponge, normally covered in chocolate. And it is the shape of a log. So you might call that a Yule log, but it's not. It has a lot more history to it as well here in France. But that lead up to Christmas and children at Christmas, because, Christmas is about children. It doesn't matter if you're a child who's 1 or 2 or a child who's 102. You're still all there, and we love that bit of Christmas. Now, Christmas, writing your letters to Father Christmas, particularly here in France. So you'll do your letter to Father Christmas, to Père Noël. In 1962, there was a law passed here in France, and it says that every child that writes their letter to Father Christmas, by law, will have a reply. So if you do have children, you write to Père Noël and you Paul de Nord. So you can write it there. It will get to Father Christmas and that child will get a reply. And I think that's really lovely. And on Christmas Eve, it is about the community, it's about your family coming together, and that's what you will normally see. So the family will come together. There are midnight masses, but there are also masses that are called midnight masses, but they are on earlier in the evening. So again, like a family service to go to, because the family will come together on Christmas Eve. You'll have a number of courses to go through. It's a very long thing. You're enjoying that lovely French food. You're enjoying the company of others, and food and drink and cheese and creams and everything that you would expect in France. And that's because Father Christmas, so Père Noël, will arrive at midnight. So you have the choice with your children. The children may stay up, and then just after midnight, Father Christmas will have come. Or they will have gone to bed earlier, and then in the morning they will wake up and find that he has come. Now, if you come from the UK or you come from the USA, then things like Christmas stockings are the norm. Here in France, traditionally, the children will put out a shoe or a slipper under the tree or at the bottom of their bed, and that's the tradition that they would do. Now, you might wonder how Father Christmas arrives at midnight and the children don't see. Well, the children hide. They hide just before midnight, and then you'll probably hear the door, and you'll probably hear the father going, "Au revoir to Father Christmas, au revoir Père Noël," as he goes, and then he's off with his reindeer in there. And then children will hear that kind of noise of the door closing. They'll know that Father Christmas has been, and they will run into the room and they will find their presents, and then the rest of the family will enjoy that time. And equally, as I said, in the morning on Christmas morning, if the children have been asleep, then they will wake up and find their presents as well. Now, Christmas Day itself, again, is really celebrated. It's a great time, but what you will normally find, that's probably a time to go to grandparents or parents-in-law or whatever it is. So it's another time, it's another lots and lots of food, but traditionally that's more time to spend with the extended family or family you haven't been able to get to. So it's not uncommon that you'd have a great celebration on Christmas Eve and then Christmas morning, then probably drive off down to grandparents or other extended family and enjoy another meal. And that is very much what Christmas is about. And Christmas here in France, it really does cover that time, but also because, in France it is very much a Roman Catholic place, and it has a lot in terms of the religion, goes back in time. Now, the festivities will continue, and there's lots of different markers as well. So I've spoken about, of course, the 1st of December, but I've spoken about the 6th of December when things sort of get into the swing. Talk about the 24th of December and the 25th of December, so Christmas Eve and Christmas Day here in France. But then we move to the 6th of January. Now, the 6th of January, a lot of people will be used to that being 12th night, and a lot of the times you would take your decorations down. But in France, the 6th of January is Epiphany, and for it is about the king of Epiphany, and the king's arriving. So we talk about the king or the kings, and that's the kings, and it is about Epiphany. What happens here in France? You get the galette de roi, so that's the tart or the cake of the kings. Really, here in France, you'll see lots of those being sold, and they'll have a crown going round them. They'll either have a piece of porcelain, if you bought quite an expensive one, and then it's part of history, or it'll have a little plastic token in there, a little toy, a little something. And it's actually cut by the youngest in the family. When they've cut that as well, they may or may not get it. So it's a little bit like finding a sixpence or a piece of silver in a Christmas pudding. It's sort of the French equivalent, but this is on the 6th of January. And if you find that piece, then you are king for the day. And that is the history around that. But you will see in the boulangeries across France, they will be selling the galettes. And it's a really big thing in here in France to be able to celebrate that. And that's really the end of Christmas and coming in there. Now, I also have another date for you as well. So when we move into February, the festivities are still sort of there. You go to the 2nd of February, and on the 2nd of February you have the La Chandeleur. And in terms of that, that's coming to the end of the nativity time. Most nativities are then taken down on the 2nd of February. So I have people say to me, they say, what about 12th night? They've still got Christmas decorations up. People are still doing that. It's very much around February the 2nd. And February the 2nd is the moving out of winter, and then we're getting to the longer days. And they will celebrate that with crêpes. So crêpes, similar to pancakes, but crêpes, everyone will know what a crêpe is. And crêpes then, on the 2nd of February, that will symbolise the sun. So a crêpe is symbolising that full sun, and it's saying that now spring will soon be here. We've had winter, we've had the festivities, we've enjoyed that. Now we're on to that next stage. So you have that on February the 2nd. So a lot of people do ask, they say, well, there's a big thing for crêpes. What is it? And that's what it's about. It's the Chandeleur. So it's the end of that winter time. It's the end of the nativity. And it is actually 40 days since Christmas Day. And if you are religious, you'll be used to the different 40 days. Now, a lot of people are used to Lent, and you go through in that Easter period, you've got the 40 days, but also the French have that 40 days, and it is in that Roman calendar as well. And that's coming in from the 40 days after Christmas, and that's why you will be able to do it. And I think if you're living in France, it's nice to understand these traditions so that you know what they're about, but also then you're able probably to reciprocate with some of your neighbours. Now, particularly on January the 6th, that is a time to invite your neighbours in. They might invite you in as well. They might invite you in to share the galette, which is there as well. So you can become that king for the day. So again, you can hopefully understand a little bit more about what that's about. But also then when you think about February the 2nd, you might want to invite some of your neighbours to come and have some crêpes with you, or you might be invited, but at least you now know what it's about. So Christmas for me is about all of those things. Now, one final thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about Christmas markets. France is famous for its Christmas markets, but did you know that in 1570 the first ever Christmas market in Europe was in Strasbourg? So Strasbourg is French. Lots of people think about Germany for their Christmas markets. Maybe they were the first there, but they weren't actually. It was the French. So there's a lot of tradition around the Christmas market in Strasbourg. And from that time, that kind of influence in that Alsace region, so the border of France and Germany, fed into Germany. Germany really took it on for the Christmas markets in Bavaria and everywhere around there. So lots of people are really familiar with those Christmas markets in Germany, but also in France, and that's where it started. So the oldest Christmas market is in Strasbourg, the oldest Christmas market in Europe. Now, Strasbourg isn't just one of the places that are there. You will also find Christmas markets in a lot of the towns and the cities around France, but Strasbourg is one of the famous ones. You will also see Christmas markets in Paris, but you will also see them in Amiens. You will also see them in Lyon, in Reims. Those are popular places for those Christmas markets for people to enjoy, but you will find them in other towns and cities across France, and it's a really big thing to go to those. Some of the more modern ones now, they are probably little chalets and they're selling all sorts of artisan ware, which is great. But to be able to go to some of those and experience them, and some will have some of those artificial ice rinks on as well, you can really get into that Christmas spirit. And I think that's what Europe as a whole really enjoys, those great Christmas times as well. But do remember that as I say again, is Strasbourg was the first ever Christmas market in Europe back in 1570s. So for me, it's a great place to go and a great place to be able to do. But if you can go into Paris, you'll be able to feel all those different Christmas markets as well. So again, really embrace it. But what you hopefully will now know is that in terms of the meal that you're going to have at Christmas, it's probably similar that you might have had in, say, America or Canada or the UK. But also you understand a little bit more about the traditions. Think about the things they're selling and why you might want to enjoy them. So you might want to have a goose for Christmas. You might want to have some oysters with there. You might actually want to be able to enjoy a French Christmas and really celebrate it on Christmas Eve, and then maybe spend it with some other friends on Christmas Day. It's nice to get into that. And if you've got children as well, at least you know a little bit more about those traditions. I really hope you've enjoyed that today. We're right at the start of December. I wanted to be able to bring you that little bit of history here in France, bring you a few things that you may or may not have known of, but do enjoy it, get into it, embrace it, enjoy the markets, go to Christmas markets, but also think about that kind of produce that is there. Really hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Do remember, press that subscribe button at the bottom. Subscribe to us, where each and every week we bring you 3 videos. We bring you on a Monday something about France. It might be the departments. It might be like we've done today. It might be about Christmas. It might be about phone services. It might be about the internet. Who knows what it's about? We always then have our property focus on a Wednesday, where we either bring you properties or we bring you information about properties in an area, or things to think about that you're there as well. And then of course on Friday we have your Friday French lesson that is there as well for you to be able to enjoy. Just a little heads up, in the new year, very early in the new year, we are going to be doing a visa special for those of you looking to move to France and you want to understand more. We're going to be having a number of experts coming in to talk to us and take us through and take you through that whole visa process from wherever you are in the world looking to move to France. Because if you don't get that visa right, then you can't move permanently to France. So it's really important to be able to get that, understand the stages of 12 months and everything else goes along it. I'm not going to spoil all of that great information, but do keep tuned for that as well. And if you have any specific questions that you want to ask about visas, then you can just send them in the chat as well, and we'll make sure they are asked on that time. I wonder what I'm going to be bringing you next week to do with something in France, but do hope you enjoyed today and look forward to seeing you next time.